I would like to end this introductory book, one of a quadrilogy, with the thought that when Julius Caesar took his troops across the river Rubicon, he paused. He paused because he knew he would change the face of civilization and that the path of history would never be the same after his actions. At the end of chapter 26 of Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, Edward Gibbon wrote, "Such were the scenes of barbaric rage which disgraced the palace and table of the Roman Emperor, and as the impatient Goths could only be restrained by the firm and temperate character of Theodosius, the public safety seemed to depend on the life and abilities of a single man." End quote. At this moment in time, half of the American voters believe that the economic institutions which rule them don't function wisely. I concur with this viewpoint. It is my policy not to be partisan with politics because I wish to persuade politicians. One thing I am certain, though, is that the leader who represents these partisan people possibly won't comprehend a word I have said. For a start, he won't have time. It seems that there will be an ideological battle to win hearts and minds within the world, particularly surrounding issues regarding land utilization or land ownership. This is a subject I deal with within my first book, beyond this introductory book, called Extinction Avoidance. On a personal note, I would like to add that I will not be having a career in politics. I would experience ad hominem attacks, which would be counterproductive to the aims and objectives of my message. You will have to do this one without me. I shall not be your savior. I am not coming to rescue you. I believe in legal frameworks. I believe in impartial institutions. In chapter 58 of Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, Edward Gibbon wrote, "Among the causes which enfranchised the plebeians from the yoke of feudal tyranny, the institution of cities and corporations is one of the most powerful, and if those of Palestine are coeval with the First Crusade, they may be ranked with the most ancient of the Latin world. End quote. When Gibbon here uses the word as corporations, he is referring to the legal system, courts, judgments. Previously, where Adam Smith used the word as corporations, he was talking about trade guilds which sought to achieve powers of monopoly within trade. To be sure, I say the First Crusade was a brutal genocidal act of barbaric warfare. Gibbon is producing evidence about the establishment of bodies which govern, and saying that those of the region which Jerusalem was part of after the First Crusade may be ranked with those of the Byzantine Empire, the Roman Catholic Church, and what legal and judicial bodies were remaining during and after the decline of the institutions of Western Rome. Within the year 1942, the Beveridge Report addressed want, disease, ignorance, idleness, and squalor as 5 dragons to be slain. Well, the year is now 2024. The 5 dragons I would like to propose are sickness, want, idleness, ill health, and vulnerability. Sickness can be addressed by having a health service which is paid by taxation in the form of PET. Want can be addressed by achieving unfettered and unregulated trade, not by calling regulation freedom. Idleness can be addressed by stock employing people when industrious work is performed intelligently upon this stock. Ill health is somewhat of an umbrella term. In my opinion, people can be linguistically unhealthy if the speaker and the listener can't achieve a level of communication. There are many thoughts, particularly thoughts within economics, which lead to delusive opinions promulgating across the world. I consider these ideas to be unhealthy because when they are implemented in law, they achieve a sort of prison. People are waiting for the end of the day without doing anything other than going round in circles. Now, the fifth giant to be slain is vulnerability. When I say this, I mean vulnerability to autocratic dictators who often have a position of military strength which is greater than that of Western democracies. If Western democracies are to not be vulnerable to invasion, then they need industrial output, armaments, shipping industries, steel industries. They need to do more than retail. They need to do more than provide banking services. They need to do more than provide hotels by the seaside. I believe it can be achievable, but not without addressing concepts such as land utilization or land ownership, because land can't be moved. Land is the surface of a sphere. There's only so much of it that can go around, and then its price increases indefinitely as population and demand for it rises. Addressing these concepts is an ecological challenge. The intransigence towards these discussions is the immediate knee-jerk reaction whereby people say, oh, that can't be done because big business has too much invested in land ownership. But the Romans had so much invested within slavery. I say that a figure called Jesus was pretty influential in saying revolutionary things at the time, such as be nice to people. That Jesus of Nazareth omitted to mention slavery altogether was possibly a masterpiece of design, a masterpiece of public relations, because Jesus of Nazareth denormalized this behavior for future generations. The Quran, in my opinion, was not so far-sighted. It dealt with local politics, such as who was allowed to pass through Medina and what to do if you got attacked. It dealt with women's rights in response to an experience Muhammad had, a revelation, after having a discussion about the rights of women with women. One of the key messages I got from the Quran is that a prophet is not a deity. prophet is not the Almighty. The prophet is a kind of inspired teacher who sees further than somebody else. I believe that the message of the Quran is not to copy Muhammad. It is not to dress like him. It's not to emulate him, but to understand the inspired messages that are written within the canon of the Islamic faith, which one of was, "Isn't it amazing how everything got to be here? Look at the stars, look at the sky, look at the earth." And also another central message I received from this religious text was that it is my purpose to fulfill whatever destiny I can, to contribute in a meaningful way to the world around me. I'm sure that many Christians would agree with this also, as would many of the Judaic faith and other faiths around the world. In Gaza, at the moment, we witness how the leader of an army might regard the whole population as subhuman, simply because a group of people called Hamas, an armed dictatorship that kills dissidents, has controlled the population and embedded itself among them. And in its turn, Hamas views every Jewish person living in Israel as subhuman, to be murdered and enslaved. But this situation arose out of a concept called land ownership, and land ownership is a theme I will deal with in my first book called Extinction Avoidance. As a final criticism of the current leader of the military that evidence indicates has committed war crimes within the Gaza Strip against a civilian population. I should add, the Jewish canon specifies that not more than one eye should be taken as revenge for one eye. That retribution should be limited in scope to that which has been inflicted upon the initial victim. I believe that the numbers of civilian casualties, the lack of water, the lack of food, the lack of shelter, and the sheer economic damage that is happening in the region might be considered to constitute more than one eye for one eye. This is the end of this introductory book entitled Rivers of Imprisonment. The end.